Welcome to Toxic from Reddit, where real toxic relationship stories come to life. Here you'll hear true stories from people who experience toxic relationships from different perspectives. Partners dealing with cheating, manipulation, gaslighting, red flags, and all the emotional chaos that comes with loving someone who hurts you. Stories of betrayal, of finding strength to leave, of discovering the truth, of heartbreak, of healing, and the raw reality of toxic love. This is a real story, shared anonymously on Reddit. Some details have been changed to protect the identity of the people involved. Hi everyone, my name is Melissa. I'm 27 years old and I live in Seattle, Washington. And I need to tell you about the most heartbreaking and humiliating experience that has completely shattered my dreams of marriage and my trust in relationships, which is that 2 months ago my boyfriend of 4 years, the man I thought was the love of my life, proposed to me in what seemed like a romantic and perfect moment. I said yes, and I was the happiest woman in the world. But then 3 days after the proposal, he sat me down and confessed that the only reason he proposed was because his ex-girlfriend had gotten engaged 2 weeks earlier, and he was trying to prove to himself and to everyone else that he had moved on and that he was over her. And now, I'm dealing with the devastation of realizing that my engagement was fake, that my boyfriend is still in love with his ex, that our entire relationship might have been a lie, and that I have to decide whether to stay with someone who proposed to me for all the wrong reasons or walk away from 4 years of my life. I'm going to tell you this entire story from the beginning because there's so much history and so many painful details that you need to understand the full scope of this betrayal. My boyfriend's name is Connor. He's 29 years old, and we met 4 years ago through mutual friends at a birthday party. Connor and I hit it off immediately. Like, we talked for hours at that party. We had amazing chemistry, and I felt like I had met someone really special. Connor asked for my number, and we started dating shortly after that party. In the beginning, our relationship was incredible. Like, Connor was attentive and romantic and thoughtful, and he made me feel like I was the most important person in his world. Connor would plan elaborate dates. He would surprise me with flowers and gifts, and he would tell me constantly how much he cared about me. I fell in love with Connor quickly, and I thought that I had finally found the person I was going to spend the rest of my life with. About 2 months into our relationship, Connor told me that he had recently gotten out of a long-term relationship, and that his ex-girlfriend's name was Stephanie, and that they had dated for 6 years. Connor said that the breakup had been difficult, but that he was over Stephanie and ready to move forward with his life. Connor said that he and Stephanie had broken up about 4 months before he met me, and that the breakup had been mutual because they had grown apart and wanted different things. I appreciated that Connor was honest with me about his past relationship, and I didn't think too much about it because 4 months seemed like enough time to get over someone. As our relationship progressed, I started noticing that Connor would sometimes mention Stephanie in conversation, like he would tell stories about things they had done together, or he would compare things I did to things Stephanie used to do. At first, I thought this was normal. Like, Connor had been with Stephanie for 6 years, so of course she was going to come up in conversation sometimes. But after a while, I started to feel uncomfortable with how often Connor mentioned Stephanie, and I started to wonder if Connor was really over her. About 6 months into our relationship, I asked Connor if he was still in contact with Stephanie, and Connor said that they were friends on social media, but that they didn't talk or see each other. I asked Connor if he still had feelings for Stephanie, and Connor seemed offended by the question, and he said that he was completely over Stephanie and that he was in love with me. I believed Connor, and I tried to push my insecurities aside and trust that Connor was being honest with me. About a year into our relationship, Connor and I were at a party, and one of Connor's friends made a comment about how Connor and Stephanie had been the perfect couple, and how everyone had thought they were going to get married. This comment made me feel really insecure, and later that night I asked Connor about it. And Connor said that yes, he and Stephanie had talked about getting married, but that they had ultimately realized they weren't right for each other. Connor said that what he had with me was different and better, and that I was the person he wanted to be with. I wanted to believe Connor, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Connor was still hung up on Stephanie. About a year and a half into our relationship, I was looking at Connor's phone to check the time, and I saw that he had been looking at Stephanie's Instagram profile. I felt a pang of jealousy and insecurity, and I asked Connor why he had been looking at Stephanie's Instagram. Connor said that he had just been curious about what she was up to, and that it didn't mean anything. I told Connor that it made me uncomfortable that he was checking up on his ex-girlfriend, and Connor said that he was sorry and that he would stop. But over the next few months, I caught Connor looking at Stephanie's social media several more times, and each time Connor would have an excuse or would say that it didn't mean anything. I started to feel like I was competing with a ghost. Like Stephanie was this perfect ex-girlfriend who Connor couldn't let go of, and I was just the rebound who could never measure up. About 2 years into our relationship, I told Connor that I needed him to be honest with me about his feelings for Stephanie, and I said that if he still had feelings for her, I needed to know. Connor got very defensive, and he said that he was tired of me bringing up Stephanie, and that he was with me and not with her, and that should be enough. Connor said that I was being insecure and jealous, and that I needed to trust him. I felt like Connor was gaslighting me, like he was making me feel crazy for having legitimate concerns about his feelings for his ex. But I loved Connor and I wanted our relationship to work, so I tried to let it go and stop bringing up Stephanie. About 2.5 years into our relationship, Connor and I moved in together, and I thought that this was a sign that our relationship was getting more serious, and that Connor was committed to me. Living together was mostly good. Like, we got along well, we had fun together, and we were building a life together. But I still noticed that Connor would sometimes seem distant or distracted, and when I would ask him what was wrong, he would say that he was just stressed about work or tired. About 3 years into our relationship, I started bringing up the topic of marriage. Like, I would ask Connor if he saw us getting married someday, and Connor would always give vague answers like, yeah, eventually, or I think so, or we'll see. I started to feel frustrated that Connor wasn't more enthusiastic about the idea of marrying me, and I started to wonder if Connor was ever going to propose. I talked to my friends about this, and they said that some guys just take longer to be ready for marriage, and that I should be patient. But I couldn't help feeling like Connor's hesitation about marriage had something to do with Stephanie. Like, maybe Connor was holding out hope that he and Stephanie would get back together. About 3.5 years into our relationship, I gave Connor an ultimatum, and I said that I needed to know if he saw a future with me, and that if he didn't, I needed to move on. Connor said that he absolutely saw a future with me, and that he loved me and wanted to marry me, but that he just wasn't ready to propose yet. Connor said that he wanted to wait until he was more financially stable, and until he could afford to buy me a nice ring. I accepted this explanation, and I decided to be patient and wait for Connor to be ready. Over the next 6 months, Connor seemed more committed to our relationship, like he was more affectionate. He was talking more about our future together, and he seemed happier. I thought that maybe Connor had finally let go of Stephanie and was fully invested in our relationship. Then 2 months ago, Connor took me to our favorite restaurant, and after dinner, he got down on one knee and proposed to me. I was completely shocked and surprised. Like, I had been waiting for this moment for so long, and I couldn't believe it was finally happening. Connor gave me a beautiful ring, and he said that he loved me, and that he wanted to spend the rest of his life with me. I said yes immediately, and I was crying tears of joy, and I felt like the happiest woman in the world. We called our families and our friends to tell them the news, and everyone was so excited and happy for us. I posted photos of my ring on social media, and I received hundreds of congratulatory messages. The next few days were a blur of excitement and happiness, like I was planning our engagement party, I was looking at wedding venues, and I was dreaming about our future together. But I noticed that Connor seemed subdued and not as excited as I thought he would be, like he wasn't talking about the wedding or our future, and he seemed distracted and distant. I asked Connor if everything was okay, and Connor said that he was just overwhelmed and that everything was fine. 3 days after Connor proposed, he came home from work and asked if we could talk. I could tell from Connor's tone and his body language that something was wrong, and I felt a sense of dread. Connor sat me down, and he looked like he was about to cry, and he said that he needed to tell me something, and that he should have told me before he proposed. My heart was racing, and I asked Connor what he needed to tell me. Connor took a deep breath, and he said that the reason he had proposed to me was because 2 weeks before he proposed, he had found out that Stephanie had gotten engaged to her boyfriend. Connor said that when he saw Stephanie's engagement announcement on social media, he had felt devastated and jealous, and he had realized that he still had feelings for her. Connor said that he had proposed to me because he wanted to prove to himself and to everyone else that he had moved on from Stephanie and that he was over her. Connor said that he thought that if he proposed to me and committed to marrying me, his feelings for Stephanie would go away. But Connor said that after he proposed, he realized that his feelings for Stephanie hadn't gone away, and that he had made a mistake by proposing to me for the wrong reasons. I felt like I had been punched in the stomach, like I couldn't breathe, and I couldn't believe what Connor was telling me. I asked Connor if he was saying that he didn't actually want to marry me, and Connor said that he did want to marry me, but that he needed to be honest about why he had proposed when he did. I asked Connor if he was still in love with Stephanie, and Connor said that he didn't know, that he was confused, and that he needed time to figure out his feelings. I was devastated. Like the happiest moment of my life had just been revealed to be a lie, and the man I thought loved me and wanted to marry me had only proposed because he was jealous of his ex-girlfriend. I asked Connor why he had told me this, and Connor said that he felt guilty for proposing for the wrong reasons, and that he thought I deserved to know the truth. I asked Connor what he wanted to do now, and Connor said that he didn't know, that he was confused, and that he needed time to think. I told Connor that I needed time to think too, and I asked him to leave and go stay with a friend or family member. Connor packed a bag and left, and I sat in our apartment alone, crying and trying to process what had just happened. I felt so many emotions: anger, betrayal, humiliation, sadness, and confusion. I was angry at Connor for proposing to me for the wrong reasons, for lying to me, and for still being in love with his ex-girlfriend after 4 years. I felt betrayed because Connor had made me believe that he loved me and wanted to marry me, when in reality he was just using me to get over someone else. I felt humiliated because I had announced our engagement to everyone I knew, and now I was going to have to tell them that it was all a lie. I felt sad because I had genuinely believed that Connor was the love of my life, and that we were going to have a future together. And I felt confused because I didn't know what to do. Like, should I end the relationship? Should I give Connor time to figure out his feelings? Should I try to work through this? Over the next few days, I talked to my friends and my family about what had happened, and everyone was shocked and angry on my behalf. My best friend said that I should break up with Connor immediately, that what he did was unforgivable, and that I deserved someone who was sure about me. My mom said that I should take some time to think about what I wanted, and that I shouldn't make any rash decisions. My sister said that Connor was clearly still in love with Stephanie, and that I would always be second choice if I stayed with him. I spent a lot of time thinking about my relationship with Connor, and about all of the signs that I had missed or ignored over the past 4 years. I thought about how Connor had always mentioned Stephanie, how he had checked her social media constantly, how he had been hesitant to commit to marriage, and how he had seemed distant and distracted. I realized that I had been in denial about Connor's feelings for Stephanie, and that I had been making excuses for his behavior because I loved him and wanted our relationship to work. I also thought about what my life would be like if I stayed with Connor, and I realized that I would always wonder if Connor really loved me or if he was just settling for me because he couldn't have Stephanie. I would always wonder if Connor was thinking about Stephanie, if he was comparing me to her, if he was wishing he was with her instead of me. I realized that I deserved better than that I deserved to be with someone who was sure about me, who chose me first, and who didn't have one foot out the door. About a week after Connor left, he called me and asked if we could meet to talk. I agreed, and we met at a coffee shop. Connor looked terrible, like he hadn't been sleeping or eating, and he looked like he had been crying. Connor said that he had spent the past week thinking about everything, and that he had realized that he had made a huge mistake. Connor said that he loved me, that he wanted to marry me, and that he was sorry for proposing for the wrong reasons. Connor said that he had been holding on to Stephanie for too long, and that he was ready to let her go and fully commit to me. Connor said that seeing Stephanie get engaged had been a wake-up call, and that it had made him realize that Stephanie had moved on, and that he needed to move on too. Connor said that he wanted to marry me for the right reasons, because he loved me and wanted to spend his life with me, not because he was trying to compete with his ex. Connor begged me to give him another chance, and he said that he would do whatever it took to prove to me that he was serious about our relationship. I listened to everything Connor said, and I could tell that he was being sincere, but I also knew that I couldn't just forgive him and move forward like nothing had happened. I told Connor that I appreciated his honesty, but that what he had done had broken my trust, and that I didn't know if I could ever trust him again. I told Connor that I needed more time to think about what I wanted, and that I wasn't ready to make any decisions yet. Connor said that he understood, and that he would give me as much time as I needed. Over the next few weeks, I continued to think about my relationship with Connor, and I went to therapy to help me process my feelings. My therapist helped me understand that what Connor had done was a form of emotional manipulation, and that even if Connor hadn't intended to hurt me, he had used me to deal with his own unresolved feelings about his ex. My therapist said that the fact that Connor had proposed to me as a reaction to his ex getting engaged was a huge red flag, and that it showed that Connor's decision-making was being driven by his feelings for Stephanie rather than his feelings for me. My therapist also helped me understand that even if Connor was now saying that he was over Stephanie and ready to commit to me, there was no guarantee that he wouldn't have another moment of doubt or jealousy in the future. My therapist asked me to think about what I needed in a partner, and whether Connor could provide that. I realized that I needed a partner who was sure about me, who chose me without hesitation, and who didn't have unresolved feelings for an ex. I realized that Connor had never been that partner, and that even if he was trying to be that partner now, I would always have doubts. I also thought about the fact that Connor had been checking Stephanie's social media for years, and that he had only proposed to me after Stephanie got engaged, and I realized that Connor's feelings for me had always been tied to his feelings for Stephanie. I realized that I didn't want to be in a relationship where I was constantly being compared to someone else, or where my partner's commitment to me was dependent on what his ex was doing. About a month after Connor had confessed the truth about why he proposed, I called him and asked him to meet me. We met at the same coffee shop, and I told Connor that I had made a decision. I told Connor that I loved him, but that I couldn't marry him, and that I thought we should break up. Connor looked devastated, and he asked me why, and he said that he thought we could work through this. I told Connor that I didn't think we could work through this because the foundation of our engagement had been built on a lie, and because I would never be able to trust that Connor was with me for the right reasons. I told Connor that I deserved to be someone's first choice, not their backup plan, and that I deserved to be with someone who was sure about me. Connor started crying, and he said that I was his first choice, and that he was sure about me now. But I told Connor that it was too late, that the damage had been done, and that I couldn't move forward with someone who had proposed to me because he was jealous of his ex. I took off my engagement ring and gave it back to Connor, and I told him that I hoped he would take some time to work on himself and to fully get over Stephanie before he got into another relationship. Connor took the ring, and he said that he was sorry for everything, and that he hoped I would find someone who deserved me. We said goodbye, and I walked away from 4 years of my life, and from the man I thought I was going to marry. The past month has been incredibly difficult. Like I've been grieving the loss of my relationship, the loss of my engagement, and the loss of the future I thought I was going to have. I've been going through all of the stages of grief, denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and I'm slowly working my way toward acceptance. I've been angry at Connor for wasting 4 years of my life, for proposing to me for the wrong reasons, and for not being honest with me about his feelings for Stephanie. I've been angry at myself for ignoring the red flags, for making excuses for Connor's behavior, and for staying in a relationship where I was always second choice. I've been sad about losing Connor because despite everything, I did love him, and I had genuinely believed that we were going to spend our lives together. And I've been grieving the loss of my dream of getting married and starting a family, because I had been so excited about that future, and now it's gone. But I've also been feeling relieved, because I know that I made the right decision, and that I would have been miserable if I had married Connor. I know that I would have spent my entire marriage wondering if Connor really loved me, or if he was just settling for me because he couldn't have Stephanie. I know that I would have been constantly insecure and jealous, and that I would have never felt like I was enough. And I know that I deserve better than that I deserve to be with someone who loves me unconditionally, who chooses me without hesitation, and who doesn't have one foot in the past. I've been thinking about the lessons I've learned from this experience, and there are so many. I've learned that you can't ignore red flags, no matter how much you love someone, because those red flags are telling you something important. I've learned that if someone is still hung up on their ex, they're not ready to be in a new relationship, and you can't force them to get over their ex. I've learned that you should never be someone's second choice or backup plan, and that you deserve to be with someone who is sure about you from the beginning. I've learned that proposals should come from a place of love and commitment, not from a place of jealousy or competition. And I've learned that sometimes the most loving thing you can do for yourself is to walk away from a relationship that isn't serving you, even if it's painful and even if you still love the person. I've been thinking about my future and about what I want in my next relationship. I know that I want to be with someone who is emotionally available, who has dealt with their past relationships, and who is ready to fully commit to me. I know that I want to be with someone who makes me feel secure and loved, not insecure and jealous. I know that I want to be with someone who chooses me first, who is excited about our future together, and who doesn't have any doubts. And I know that I'm not going to settle for anything less than that, because I've learned that I deserve better. I've been thinking about Connor and about what his life is like now, and I hope that he's taking the time to work on himself and to get over Stephanie. I hope that Connor learns from this experience, and that he doesn't do to someone else what he did to me. But ultimately, Connor's journey is not my responsibility anymore, and I need to focus on my own healing and my own future. I've been thinking about Stephanie and about how she has no idea that her engagement triggered all of this drama in my life. I've been thinking about how strange it is that someone I've never met has had such a huge impact on my relationship and my life. But I've also realized that this situation was never really about Stephanie. It was about Connor and his inability to let go of the past and fully commit to the present. I've been thinking about other people who might be in similar situations, who might be in relationships with someone who is still hung up on their ex. And I want to tell them to pay attention to the red flags, to trust their instincts, and to not ignore their concerns. I want to tell them that if their partner is constantly talking about their ex, checking their ex's social media, or comparing them to their ex, those are signs that their partner is not over their ex. I want to tell them that they deserve to be with someone who is fully present in the relationship, who has dealt with their past, and who is ready to build a future with them. I want to tell them that if their partner proposes to them and something feels off, they should trust that feeling and ask questions, because a proposal should feel joyful and certain, not confusing or uncertain. And I want to tell them that it's okay to walk away from a relationship that isn't serving them, even if they've invested years into it, because staying in the wrong relationship is worse than starting over. Thank you for reading my story, and if you've been through something similar, if your partner proposed to you for the wrong reasons, if you were in a relationship with someone who was still in love with their ex, if you had to walk away from an engagement, or if you've had to end a long-term relationship because you realized you were second choice, I would love to hear how you dealt with it and where you are now. I'm still healing, still processing the betrayal and the loss, still figuring out who I am outside of this relationship, but I'm hopeful about the future, and I'm confident that I made the right decision by choosing myself.